Welcome on into another edition of the Zig Zone. Tyler Cavlett's here, guest hosting for Holden Ruck today, and I am joined first on to my left by Jacob Kopaz.
Hey guys, I'm glad to be here, and I'm excited to get the show started.
Alongside Dan Reinauer.
Thank you for having me, Tyler.
Of course, Dawson Pelter.
Hello, I'm excited to talk about softball.
And finally, Foster Rostai.
It's good to be back.
So we have a loaded show talking about men's basketball, women's basketball, hockey, softball, baseball, and probably a few other things along the way. Apologies for getting the show started a bit late. Had Dawson come in and help us avoid the technical difficulty crash of the century, so good job on your end. But first, want to get into this men's basketball talk. Mm-hmm. Bowling Green men's basketball, biggest win of the season. With how the Kansas State season has gone, I think you can say, Foster. Biggest win, no doubt, of the conference schedule for the Falcons. A huge 80-70 victory in the Battle of I-75 against Toledo. Foster, you and I were on the call with that, along with Artie Abrego. Can you just describe to all of the listeners just the energy in that building and how big of a win this is for the program this season?
Oh, it was an electric. I mean, beginning to end electric throughout the, an hour before tip-off when everybody started getting there, you could feel everybody was there. Everyone was ready to go. Everyone was ready to get just a little bit of a revenge, on Toledo after, what happened in Savage Arena. And, that's one of those things where that's probably the second most, just for a regular season game. Miami of Ohio, probably was a little bit more full, but that was, beginning to end, packed crowd. They were getting up on their feet throughout the game. They were ready to go.
Well, we can just hop into this right now with the crowd discussion. I crunched some numbers afterwards of the game, and it was the most packed crowd of the season for Bowling Green at the Stroh Center. In fact, it was the most packed crowd in 6 years for a men's basketball game inside of the Stroh Center. You had 4,167 fans packed inside the arena. The last time you had a crowd larger was 5,000 against Toledo on February 8th, 2020. And this rivalry just brings out the fans. Falcons have had 4 games in the past 4 seasons where they've had over 4,000 fans at a men's basketball game. All 4 have come against the Rockets.
Yeah, and that's just what this kind of, closeness in a rivalry does. It's a 30-minute drive for one of the other to Toledo or to Bowling Green. So that means that, you can get everybody there, both home and away, to pack these stadiums. And, you're going to see those opposing teams, just because of how close you are, you're going to see them come back and forth.
Indeed you are. We had head coach Todd Simon talked about the energy in the fans that his program has post-game. If I can pull up that clip real quick. The technical difficulties getting in the way a little bit. Dawson saved us, but still getting in the way a tad bit. So, 1 second here. This is what Todd Simon, head coach of the Falcons, said about the fan support in the arena yesterday against Toledo. Arena for the game.
Yeah, I mean, our fans are spectacular. They're they are everything right about college sports. They're passionate. They show up. They're supportive. They care. It's a unbelievable fan base. The community is awesome. They showed out, and it was just a really proud day to be a Falcon.
And something else that we got into talking with based off of Simon's comments after the game is a little bit of an interesting discussion of how the win was handled up in Toledo with Toledo's fan base versus how it was handled in Bowling Green with Bowling Green's fan base. Very different. Toledo, you had the student section the entire time throwing F-bombs at the Falcons, and you had that during the press conference. It was a volatile scene outside the press conference by the concourse at Savage Arena. Completely different at the Stroh Center. No vulgar, expletive language, just pure joy with the Falcon fans.
Yeah, and I think part of that has to do with just the environment that was also going on. The Falcons were also being revealed afterwards, so there was a lot of people there to see, who were the Falcons. Maybe their friends were there getting ready to be revealed as the Falcon, but it's one of those things that that's it's a rivalry. You kind of understand that comes with the territory, but at the same time, it's good to see that your fan base handles winning with a lot of humility, and so you don't have to be like, well, those are our fans. We don't like that, but that's just kind of how it is. These are our fans. We understand they know how to handle themselves, and they're gonna, regardless of where they're at, whether it be here in Bowling Green at the Stro or at Savage Arena or wherever else they may travel to, they're gonna, be just a great representation of Bowling Green as a whole.
And I know, Foster, you and I were on the call. You three to my left were not on the call, but I'm sure you guys watched it. Dawson, you were there doing video. What were your guys' takeaways from the win, the all-important win for the Falcons?
I'd really say just the first part. I mean, as someone who's kind of grown up in this area and has just kind of been invested into it, just that aspect that you see of kind of that gap. Once you go a little bit north, once you get into like the Perrysburg, the Rossford area, it's like a split. There's some orange and brown, there's some, midnight blue and gold. Than this, the more north you get, it's just all full gold. And to kind of get back to it, you really just see that like rivalry aspect of it. Like, oh, you're from Bowling Green? Ew. And it's kind of like, it feels kind of mutual, but it's also like, I feel like in Northwest Ohio specifically, 364 days, you're going to just try to benefit the Northwest Ohio community, work together, make sure that this is just a proud area to live in. But that one day in the Battle of I-75, you just already know that that's going to be a big rivalry game to look at. And especially, too, getting the win last year at Savage, falling a tad short this year, but then able to just reclaim that and realize the Stroh Center is our home. This is what we represent, and this is the culture that Coach Simon has built for the players and then the fans have just built for the community, is definitely a great aspect to see.
100%. I think I agree with the the Northwest Ohio coming together, as well as the fans. Like we mentioned how great and respectful our fans are, but especially you guys were in the press conference, but I did some video with the revealing of the mascots. And there were just so many students all watching, standing up in the students.
It was loud for
it
that.
Was so great.
You could barely hear Todd Kowalczyk and Todd Simon talking to the mic.
Kowalczyk was very quiet, though. He's a very quiet talker regardless. He's not going to talk super loud, so if you aren't right on top of him listening to him, you're going to have a hard time. And when it's as loud as it was out there, it was a tough time hearing him.
But I think it's so cool, too, that you have all these different groups blend together. I know you had two guys that were frat guys that were birds. You had these other majors that people that you typically wouldn't see come together. It brought everybody together. Of course, the win helped a lot with that, too. But I think it was just a great night overall for the Falcons.
Yeah, I mean, last night it was really a great day to be a Falcon. I mean, you had the Birds reveal like you guys mentioned before, and also the big win over Toledo, but it was really just a good time for the BG community to come together, and I think that played into part of the humility aspect, as it wasn't just straight sports fans there, it was everyone from the Bowling Green community coming together to watch BG beat their rival.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely was. In terms of more of the game aspect of it, there's one guy that really stood out to me in the game, and he's someone that I had mentioned before the game as something to watch out for. I had mentioned you were going to need somebody to step up alongside Javante Campbell. Mm-hmm. Josiah Shackelford did. He's not the one I'm mentioning here. He had 16 points, hit 3 3-pointers, was tremendous in key moments for the Falcons. But Aiden Goins only plays 10 minutes, scores 10 points, gets 4 rebounds, 2 of them on the offensive end. Really had a huge impact in forcing Toledo to just be confused on their defense of how to guard him when he collapsed and put on his post moves down in the post for the limited time he got. If he's not in that game, I think you have a different game with how Bowling Green was able to control the paint during his minutes. The question is now, is Aiden Goins going to be able to continue this against the final 5 opponents that the Falcons have in conference play?
Well, I think one thing that you can always count on as a player is energy, and Aiden brought a lot of that off the bench. I mean, he's going at Austin Parks, who at one point was a top 5 player in the state of Ohio, an Ohio State recruit. You don't see those type of players in the MAC often, and he was going right at him. There was no fear in him, and
giving up 3 inches in that matchup too. I think he's 6'7", going up against the 6'10" Austin Parks.
Absolutely, and he went right at him. There was no fear at all. And one of the big things was offensive rebounds, just fighting for second chance opportunities. That's something that, if the shot's not falling and, he 3 for 9 from the field, one of those kind of rough shooting nights, but He's fighting down low. He's drawing fouls. I mean, Owinga got 3 quick fouls, forcing him to go to the bench, bringing Austin Parks back on, and him also getting 3 fouls. Now, all of those aren't Aiden Goins exclusively, but being down low, forcing them to foul him, just because of how much of a mismatch he is. And Shackelford, talked about how much of a mismatched player he can be. He brought a lot of energy, and you could see when he got the first second chance opportunity and one over Austin Parks, flexed right on him, walked right, bumped right into him, walked right past him, right to the team, and you could right then you could tell he was ready to go. He was that spark, and that spark really helped lead that Falcons, because in that first little bit of the game they were trying to find their footing. In came in and really helped settle him down.
I think that's what I noticed too, was like his intensity the most at it. Like we mentioned the height difference, but also he has a bit more size to him. He's a little bit slower, yet you could not tell that. He was fighting after loose balls, getting in there. You mentioned when he was flexing on the guys. I was obviously like right there doing video on the sideline, so I saw all of it. One of the Toledo coaches was like, he's not athletic. Like, don't try to block it. But he's still powering them, getting layups. Like, his intensity and competitiveness was there, and it was so cool to watch.
Well, and I don't think a lot of fans realize, he's in so much better shape now than he was when we were watching some practices before the season. Simon, I had known through an interview that he had lost over 30 pounds before the season. Simon said that number's now over 50.
Jeez.
Yeah,
So since June, Aiden Goins has lost over 50 pounds, gotten in shape to be able to go out there and play. And I mean, he's only out there for 10 minutes. It was 2 minutes less than he was out there the first time against Toledo, but just so much more impactful 3 weeks later. And another player that Simon mentioned this when he went out, when Justin Thomas went out, how key that was to him. And I don't think I realized exactly at the time. Now watching the Toledo game, and by that I don't think I realized just how important he was, because
that's one of those unsung hero kind of things. He does a little of everything. He always has his hands on.
And I think the most striking thing is we had to watch Josiah Shackelford and Javon Ruffin try to play on the ball. Watching them against Toledo, this offense fired at all cylinders, and Shackelford and Ruffin were able to play off the ball.
Yes.
And that's where they thrive the most. And when you look at the way that this roster is constructed right now, that only leaves you really Meyer Wall and Javante Campbell as the ball handlers. Well, Wall, you kind of want to bring off the bench if you're Todd Simon to lead that unit. So getting Justin Thomas back allows you, if you're Bowling Green, to have 2 ball handlers out there in your starting 5. And like you said, he does a little bit of everything. 5 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals. He's such an underrated defender. Just him being back in this offense, this is the Bowling Green offense we expected to see the entire season against Toledo. We finally got to see it at full strength, and it's a fun watch. The question is, can they continue this and roll this over into the rest of their season?
That's the biggest thing. And I think one of the big things that I'm looking at is 21 3-point shots, shooting over 50% from 3. That's something that they've done once or twice this season. The game against Toledo was their best 3-point shooting game to date at 52.4%. And they're not taking a lot of attempts. If they can keep kind of a low attempt, especially wide open attempts. Javon Ruffin went 2 for 3 from 3. Wide open attempts. There was nobody around him, and that's really good for him. He struggled when he has the ball, is looking to create for himself, but when he's a spot up shooter, he's a knockdown shooter. He doesn't, when he's taking a lot of pressure off him, great. Shackelford, I understand not wanting him to be as much of a ball handler. I'd like him in that kind of Javante Campbell, put your head down, get to the basket kind of role.
He right now feels better as a transition ball handler.
He is.
If you get him the ball and give him a 60-foot head of steam, he's
he
a problem.
He just puts his head down and gets to the basket. You'd like to see him shoot a little bit better than 5 for 16 at that. But he's putting...
He hit the ones in the key moments. That's what mattered,
and
though.
he's putting a lot of pressure on the offense. Or on the defense to collapse on him, which opens up the offense even more for a kick-out 3 to someone like Sam Towns, who went 4 for 6 from 3. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Sam Towns, who struggled from behind the arc at points this season, figured it out last night, and just put on a show.
He was 2 for 16 over his last 5 games on 3-pointers coming into last night. And I remember on the broadcast I mentioned that after he missed his first one, and then he rattled off, I think, 2 or 3 straight after that.
Yeah.
But again, like, I think you just saw a Bowling Green team, maybe not at their full potential, but
It was
the
close to it,
closest we've seen to it this year.
Since maybe the Kansas State game,
Yeah.
but even then, Kansas
And again,
State.
Toledo's not the best defense in the MAC.
No.
They're not. But a win in dominant fashion like that is a win.
Yes.
You can't discredit a team for doing what they're supposed to do
no.
against a Toledo defense, and that's hard to do. It's hard to win by double digits in a rivalry game.
Yeah, especially like you said, rivalry game. I mean, both teams kind of punch and counter punch this game. Bowling Green had a couple runs that Toledo couldn't answer, and that would really took it away. That Bowling Green made runs, Toledo couldn't answer those runs. And a big thing, second half, Toledo was really crashing that offensive board. They were getting offensive rebounds, they were not converting on them. And so that's that kind of defense that we've talked about with Bowling Green, that, you know, one of the best in the MAC, might be top right now. I mean, holding a team to 70 points in the MAC is phenomenal.
And I think maybe one of the best things looking at a box score is to see only 7 turnovers.
Absolutely. I mean,
only 7 turnovers for Bowling Green is something that, you know, we haven't seen much at all this season. And I'm looking here. I don't know if that is that's the second fewest they've had in a game. They had 7 against Aquinas and 6 against Lemoyne.
and it wasn't like these turnovers.
8 against Kansas State, by the way.
And they weren't like Toledo forcing them into turnovers. This was, they were getting too fast. We talked about it on the broadcast. They want to play fast. They were getting out, you know, defensive rebound running. They were playing a little too fast for themselves. Javante Campbell had a couple turnovers where he was, you know, 3-on-1, was looking to get to the basket, just kind of got collapsed on, and ball falls out of his hand, and Toledo has it. Or same with Shackelford, getting down low. Those kind of things are going to happen. You'd like, you know, to just know that, okay, it's 1-on-3. I know Campbell's one of the best finishers in the MAC.
Yeah, if not the best.
Yeah, because you expect him to be able to get to the paint and finish through all the bigs down there. Slow it down, let the offense kind of find its way, because the set offense was rolling. They were finding open shooters. You know, Campbell was getting to the paint when he wanted to, and so there's a lot of turnovers. A lot of them were, you know, unforced errors on the Falcons, but they can clean that up, and they'll, you know, they got a big game ahead of them. Kent State coming to the show, so that's where the, you know, put your money where your mouth is. Can you, you know, put 2 games in a row like that?
And that's kind of where I want to go to, and I'll open this up to everyone as well. Bowling Green right now, 4th in the MAC because of tiebreakers after winning 3 in a row. You're 16-10 overall. You're 7-6 in conference. The leading team in the conference is Miami, of course. Akron's number 2. They've only lost 1 in conference play. Then you have Kent State, 10-3. Those are the unquestioned top 3 teams in the conference. There is a noticeable gap between Kent State. Then when you get to Bowling Green, Ohio, Toledo, UMass, and I would possibly include Buffalo. That's your next tier. And then you have the rest with Central, Western, Northern, Ball State, and Eastern. They're, you know, not great seasons there. But where do we think Bowling Green is going to finish this season? That Kent State game is a huge one for them to solidify a 4th spot, because it's going to be hard to catch Kent State in the 3 spot. But do we think the Falcons can end up in that 4 seed for the tournament?
I think they can, yeah. What I was going to mention is kind of the vibe and mentality right now. You look at last week where they just came off that Arkansas State game, and we're kind of like, oh. And then they pick up that 16-point win versus NIU, and then a double-digit win versus your rival.
I think Simon probably just told the team, hey, look, that game doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, sure, we got just hammered.
Yeah.
But in the end, you know, cool. You got 10 losses now instead of 9.
Yeah.
It's one of those
The
easier
committee's
ones
really going to factor that in and considering whether they're going to get a at-large bid into the NCAA tournament. So, like, you just don't get that in a one-bid conference.
Yeah.
So I think Simon probably just goes, hey, you know, we got to win conference games. Put that behind you. Who cares about it?
Yeah. Well, and I feel a lot more confident about them now than I did last week.
Agree with that.
And then Kent State, last time they played them, just barely losing, right? Last second shot, Meyer Wall. And then you have Miami after that, which we'll see how that goes. But Yeah, I feel very confident about them. And what I like, too, is to see we mentioned that three-point shooting best all season. And I've seen them struggle so much from three, especially like wide open, great looks where they just haven't been able to knock them down. And they finally did. And that I've been waiting to see them get over that hump for a while. And to see them actually do that, I really like their odds going into the rest of the season and then into the tournament.
I mean, definitely with the rest of the schedule, the way it's going for BG basketball right now. I mean, it seems like they're lifting the heavyweights first, and then it just kind of like goes down a little bit. I mean, UMass, Eastern, you end the year, Western Michigan as well. But this is going to have to be a game, I feel like, that just really is going to be the deciding factor on whether or not the momentum carries. I mean, you got a streak going. You got more than one win in a row. And obviously Kent State is a team that above you in the standings, you're going to be looking at that, but it's still going to be, you need to go out there and take advantage of it, especially since I'm looking more right now towards Friday, because going into Millett Hall with how it's shaped, how the Miami student section operates, it's going to be really just a tough challenge to get through. But that's going to be your biggest challenge for the rest of the regular season before the MAC tournament is Miami of Ohio and having to go down to Oxford. But then that just kind of piggybacks off this game too, because it just makes it that much more critical to take advantage of your own crowd and to be able to have that, especially with Coach Simon the entire year saying how much the crowd has impacted the games, to go on to that and really just try to build those 3 games before going into what arguably could be your toughest game of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, just adding on top of that with the crowd, I think this Kent State game probably comes at the perfect time for the Falcons. I mean, you're riding this win streak right now. You have the fan base behind you after that big Toledo win last night, and you're going to be looking for your fan base to come pack the Stro again, and hopefully you can prove in that game that you can fight with the top dogs in your conference. If you beat Kent State, that really sets you up for that Miami game, and then that you can go toe-to-toe, hopefully, with the last undefeated team in the country. So I think really this is the stretch for the Falcons to prove themselves. This is your make or break point of the season. Show what you're made of. Show you can contend with the top dogs in the MAC. And then maybe you can get a better bid for one of the tournaments.
One of the last things I want to talk about here with men's basketball before we move on to some of the other sports, there's been criticism about Todd Simon, especially this season more than the past 2, with how the season went at times, the struggles that this team has had getting going. Now the team seems to be clicking on all cylinders right now going into the Kent State game. How confident are we in Todd Simon to be the coach that can get this team to have some postseason success? And, do we think he's on a hot seat at all right now in terms of finishing his 3rd season? Do we expect to see him back in his 4th season, or do you think there's a shot that if things don't go well to end this season that you could see a coaching change?
Well, I'll start it off. To see a coaching change at the end of the season, it'd have to be a downfall, like a historic collapse for the Falcons team. They'd have to almost basically lose out and then miss the MAC tournament. I don't see that happening with the opponents they have in front of them, Western Michigan, Eastern Michigan, both having very rough seasons. That being said, a MAC tournament win is needed out of this coaching staff, and especially head coach Todd Simon. Last year, one of the worst tournament losses, I think, in the MAC to date against that Akron team, who just, injuries obviously play a factor. You lost a lot of players throughout the season. You still, limped in after NIU wins a game to get you into the postseason, but get a MAC win in postseason play, and then we can reevaluate that. But if you can't get out of the first round, especially at the 4 seed, it's kind of tough to keep him around.
Right now, for reference too, if the tournament started tomorrow, it'd be a rematch, Bowling Green, Toledo, 1st round in Cleveland.
That'd be sweet. But no, Foster, I agree with you completely. I think I'm a big believer that basketball comes in ebbs and flows, right? You're going to have streaks where you're going to lose a couple games, things are going to look pretty bleak, and then you're going to have streaks kind of like what we're almost seeing right now, that, oh my gosh, this team's doing pretty well. Like, it's what we like to see. So I'm glad to see that they're hitting the stride right now. This is towards the end of the season when you're heading into March. This is when you really want to hit that. So I think the MAC tournament will be very telling of what we can kind of expect from this coaching staff and kind of what the vibe will be going forward.
And part of that too is just you don't want to be like kind of just at a stagnant state in your coaching career. I think part of that too just kind of goes at overall record, and from going from a 14 win last season to having 16 this year, you're seeing some improvement. Now that also takes into consideration, okay, you can get it done in the regular season, but what about the postseason?
And honestly, sorry to jump in here, but that's the one thing that Todd Simon has never been able to have success with is the postseason. Even during his time with Southern Utah, they win a regular season championship or two. He wins a Coach of the Year. The one thing that he was never able to do at Southern Utah in his 7 seasons there was win in the postseason. Never had tournament success to a substantial level. And that's really the one knock that I had on him when he got hired by the Falcons was it's a guy that just has not been able to prove that he can win in the postseason. I don't know the exact reason for that. I think maybe him keeping his rotations too tight throughout a lot of the regular season may have a factor in that when guys have to step up in the postseason, they're not exactly ready for that role. Outside of that, I don't know, maybe it's just the bad luck of the draw kind of thing throughout his career, but it's hard to avoid the fact that's just one thing that he has not had success with.
You mentioned that rotation with some of the bench guys. How do you feel he's been doing with that this year, though?
I think he's in an interesting position because I think some of the guys that you'd like to see in the rotation just aren't ready for it. I think you're looking at the Mekhi Leaches.
Yeah.
You're looking at the Camden Carrolls. You're looking at the Preston Squires. You're looking at players like that that you thought maybe could take a step up, or in Leach's and Carroll's case, they're just freshmen. So I think Gowen's getting back into the fold is good because he was someone that was kind of left out for a little bit there, and I don't know if it's because he wasn't ready, whatever it was, but now you have a solid bench, but still, I mean, you only played 3 guys off the bench against Toledo. That's still a fairly tight rotation. Toledo went with the same. You expect that at this point in the season, but it's been known throughout Simon's time here that he is a little tighter than some coaches on rotation, so just something to think about. But that'll about do it for our conversation with men's basketball. They do face Kent State next up at the Stroh Center.
I will say, right after the Toledo game, BGSU put out a text. I don't know how many else got it. Baseline $10 tickets for the $10 the 10-point win over Toledo for the Kent State game. So baseline $10 ticket. Be there in the Stroh, 7 p.m. Should be a great game.
Should mention too before we move on. Don't know how I didn't bring that up. 50th win for head coach Todd Simon.
Yeah.
Against
Over
Toledo.
Toledo is such a great way to do your 50th.
Yeah. So was the 50th for him at BG. Good milestone for him to hit in his 3rd season here at the Falcons. But again, Kent State Kent State Tuesday, February 17th, 7 p.m. Close one in Kent last time. Should be a fun one at the Stroh. Would be awesome if we get another turnout close to what we had against Toledo. That'd be an energetic environment. I'll have the call with Artie Abrego on Falcon Radio for that one. We will have a studio pregame with Holden Ruck, Noah Seeley, and Sam Bork starting at 6:45 p.m. again this Tuesday. So make sure to tune into that one. We're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some BGSU women's basketball action and them trying to figure out their footing and trying to really save their season at this point. So taking a quick break. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM. Are you a fan of BG Falcon Media and the Falcon Media Sports Network? You can show your support for BGSU Student Media by donating at the bottom of the page of stories on bgfalconmedia.com.
Hi, I'm Sydney Hernandez, and this is my Falcon 4 Essential Carries. For every day, I like to carry my chapstick, just to keep my lips moisturized. I like to have my phone to stay in contact with friends and family. If I'm at school, have to have my laptop for notes and all my assignments. And I also like to keep a little snack with me at all times, just in case I get hungry throughout the day. Go Falcons!
Welcome back to the Zig Zone here on WBGU 88.1 FM. Again, Tyler Kavlitz, guest hosting for Holden Ruck today, joined by Jacob Kopaz, Dan Ryanauer, Dawson Pelter, and Foster Rosti. Talked about some men's basketball action in their win against Toledo. Moving on to women's basketball. Men's basketball has all the momentum in the world right now. Women's basketball is kind of the opposite. They're sitting at 13-12 overall, 5-8 in conference play. Just coming off a loss to a very good Ball State team, 82-67, after they had an 11-point win over Buffalo that, frankly, probably should have been a little larger. First of all, just opening this up to the room, what are our thoughts on where this team is right now? And I should mention, too, you look at the standings, they are the 8th team in the conference standings. So right now they would just sneak into the MAC tournament. So what are our thoughts on where they are? How comfortable are we with this team right now?
I'm really not comfortable with this team. They just scare me a lot. We talk about they did beat Buffalo, but worst team in the MAC. They were up 21-22, somewhere around there.
2-22 overall, 0-12 in conference play as well, and 0-11 in away games.
But BG was up like 21 against them. Buffalo ends up cutting it to like 6, and then they end up winning by 11. But they just have these streaks where on defense they can't figure things out. Especially in that Buffalo game, it was the post play. Bowling Green was either doubling them or fronting in the post. And either way, when they were fronting, they didn't have a back guy. When they were doubling, they weren't having good help, and they were just getting wide open layups. So against a lot of these better teams in the MAC, you cannot make lazy mistakes like that. You see it in the Ball State game, which granted, great Ball State team, but I said last week that you have to treat every game like it's a playoff game, and that especially matters now because the way it is right now, they're going to sneak into the MAC tournament and then most likely get out in the first round. So
yeah, and I will say, I think some people overreacted to the Ball State loss a little bit. I heard and I think this might not be the majority, but some people saying like, oh, that loss, really nailing the hammer kind of thing. And I'm like, Ball State's the number 1 team in the conference now.
They're
after
12-1.
Miami's loss. Yeah, like
second going into that game. After
yeah.
Miami loses their first game of the season.
Yeah,
to UMass.
21-5 now this season. I don't think.
No.
Maybe you could have kept that one closer. Who knows? But I don't think that's a bad loss. But upcoming you have Western Michigan, who's out of the tournament right now. If it starts today, 7-16, 3-9 in the MAC. You have a rematch against Toledo, 13-10 overall, 7-5 in the MAC. They are 2 spots ahead of you. You have Ohio on the road. They're a spot above Toledo, 15-9, 9-4 in the MAC. You go to Central. They're also very good. They're 1 spot above Ohio, 16-8, 10-3. And then you get Northern Illinois at home to finish it off. Second worst team in the conference. But, I mean, you got 3 not great teams and 3 fairly good teams.
Yeah.
So if you're Bowling Green, is 3-3 enough to get you into the tournament? That would put you at 8-11.
I think it's enough to sneak in. It's not. I mean, you're going to be put up then against Ball State or Miami. Those two have clear cut best teams in the MAC for the women's teams. Unless you can figure something out, have the best offensive performance of your career, and that means everybody having the best offensive performance of their career on that team, they're not beating Miami or Ball State. They've just shown, they're better. I mean, Ball State has 6'5" centers on that roster. It's a very hard matchup for Bowling Green, but if you can go 3-3, you could probably sneak in. 4-2 is probably your best chance. 5-1 would absolutely get you in. If you can go undefeated in that stretch, you got all the momentum in the world, and I would, you may be able to get a first round upset if you're still lower against Ball State or Miami.
I would be fine if let's say they make the tournament and they play Miami. I'm good with that matchup. I did video for that one. I felt like they should have won that one. They kind of shot themselves in the foot. Ball State, that would be the worst possible matchup that you could have. You mentioned the post presence of Ball State. That would be scary.
Yeah, I mean, Miami was only a 2-point loss.
Yeah.
51-49 at home. I do remember that.
The Falcons
game.
played well. They
Yeah.
just, in the end, down the stretch, the last couple minutes of the fourth quarter, they just shot themselves in
They
the foot.
shot it very well in that game.
They did.
40% from the field, 41% from 3-point range, and just still manufactured a way to lose. When
Yeah.
Miami shooting 40 and 29% from the.
It was a disappointing loss.
Well, what were the turnovers in that? Because that's been the biggest issue, I think, from my eyes with
Yes.
this team this year is they can't win the turnover battle, and you have it's so hard to win games, so you don't win that.
Absolutely, and they force a lot of turnovers, but they give up a lot of turnovers, and
Yeah.
you can't do that.
Yeah, Bowling Green ended up with 28 to Miami's 26. So, just a small loss in the turnover battle means everything in the point differential. So,
And what I've noticed from this women's team is that they struggle to score in transition as well. So they get those turnovers, but they can't quite turn them into points, finish them. So they do. That is a strong selling point for them, is how many turnovers they do generate, but the amount that they give up, it just doesn't equate to much.
Exactly. I mean, it's the turnovers, and then also it's the shooting. I mean, you look at the aspect of it when you shoot looking roughly. I think it was like you average like 2 or 3 roughly, like 3-pointers to and you attempt like 18, and that's just a rough median, but it's kind of in that ballpark for all your games. So it's the turnovers and it's the shooting that have just been really stagnant the entire season. That's been the downfall for them so far. But also, too, what I'm seeing right now in the standings, you talk about just barely squeezing by in the tournament, and then you're going to have to play a Ball State or a Miami, which most likely will be a first-round exit. But also, too, if it has to come down between you and Eastern Michigan, as of now, I just seeing Eastern Michigan, I believe they have more momentum than Bowling Green does, and they also just kind of have that upper edge for that last spot. And if you take them head-to-head, saw that earlier this year, Bowling Green lost to Eastern Michigan going up to Ypsilanti. So, I mean, looking how that's going for them, those are kind of my 3 takeaways from it. You got Eastern Michigan right behind you. The shooting hasn't improved at all this year, and then neither has the turnovers. So those are going to be your 3 biggest considerations as you try to close out the season.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. As Foster was talking about earlier, I think 3-3 for the rest of the season, that has got to be your baseline here. I mean, you faced Ball State, which was the hardest team for the rest of the year on your schedule, as that we all know they're first in the MAC now, and they're a good basketball team, Ball State. You had 4 players on BG who had double-digit scoring, and you still lost by almost 15. So, I mean, you're going to hope these last couple of games, you take the momentum and take the keys that you can from this Ball State game, because it wasn't a terrible game for us. And after this, you take it, you go against Western Michigan, hope to get a win there. And if you do, you carry that momentum to the rest of the season, and hopefully they can use that to maybe get up a spot in the tournament so they won't have to face a Ball State and maybe go against an easier matchup like Miami.
I think Toledo will be a big teller of kind of how the momentum and vibe is going to look the rest of the season. Because at Savage Arena, Toledo comes out guns a-blazing, up by like 15. All of a sudden, Toledo can't do anything. Bowling Green comes out, ties it up, and then the rest of the game, it's just back and forth, back and forth. So I think
Toledo, not a good away team either.
No,
3-9 on the road this year.
So I believe they'll be able to pick that one up. Ohio is going to be very interesting. Last game versus Ohio, they just completely lit it up from downtown. There wasn't anything that Bowling Green could do to stop that. So there's a couple, we talk about 3-3 being their baseline. There's a couple of these games that I think are going to be very showing for obviously how they're going to place in the MAC, but then how they're going to perform in the tournament, because some of these these teams are very similar to them, and especially like you talk about the Convocation Center, how great of a place that is to play. It's going to be showing of how the MAC tournament's going to be, I feel like.
Which players do we want to see kind of step up and help the Donahue in the Kohlers? Because Gherkin and Kaya Woods have kind of been switching that role of being that third scorer, it feels like, on and off. Janiah Bland Fitzpatrick has started to do a little bit off the bench. Is there a player or a couple players that this team just needs a little more out of down the stretch?
I mean, you mentioned Lauren Gherkin. I mean, like you said, they've been going back and forth on the number 3 scorer for the team. I think in a perfect world, you hope to get more out of both Lauren Gherkin and Kaya Woods for the rest of the season. I mean, the game against Ball State, they were 2 of the 4 players who put up double-digit points. So if you can keep that going for the rest of the season, you can hopefully get a couple more wins. And, I mean, just having more depth scoring, that is really going to help you against these close games to end out the rest of your season.
It's going to be interesting to see just kind of where everything goes. I mean, Taya Ellis is a potential one, but it's been more of the Gherkin and then Woods show kind of as that backup. But, I mean, this is still a Donahue and Kohler team, and it's just difficult to kind of pinpoint who exactly it is. I mean, for the men's team, it's a bit more clear. This is the Shackelford and Campbell show, and then you got guys like Aiden Goins or Myar Wall that step up and really just kind of bring that third guy when you need it. So it's difficult, I guess, to see and just pinpoint more exactly, but it's going anywhere from, I mean, Lauren Gherkin, Kaya Woods, as we mentioned, but, I mean, I kind of see like a Fern or a Taya Ellis kind of in that third spot almost, if that makes sense.
That's what I would mention too. I felt watching them, some of the games these seasons, Bland Fitzpatrick and Fern especially have kind of felt like the Myar Wall kind of for like the women's team, where solid players coming in off the bench can contribute, can lead your bench unit and make a dent. And kind of you look at Kohler, incredible player, right? 1,000-point scorer, has to do a lot, pull her weight for this team. So we've mentioned a lot of these players, and going into the tournament, you need to have these players step up and support your cast.
And I'll go even more on Ellis. This season, in 47 more minutes of play compared to last season, only 10 more shots. You'd like to see her get a little bit more, just maybe play through her just a little bit more. She can, she has those mismatch differences. She's a good rebounder. Get her started. Open up the paint just a little bit with her starting, and then, they like to shoot the threes. Then you can start kicking out for those 3-point shots, because if you have her, established down in the paint, and then have someone like Kendall Moxie come in and establish herself in the paint as well, or Bland Fitzpatrick, who we have seen, the flashes of her great, play down in the paint, then those threes become a lot easier than, having a defender follow Kohler around the entire time. She drops down, doubles the paint, pass out. It's a wide open shot for her.
I will say, I think the most concerning thing for me when looking at this team is just the inefficiency. However Shamil's been able to mix the pieces throughout the year, they just haven't been able to solve that. I think some of that might stem from your 2 leading scorers just aren't the most efficient scorers in the world. Donahue is truly, really a 1-level scorer, to be quite honest, and I think we're all hoping that she'd be a 2 or 3 level scorer. She's a 1.5 level scorer when you look at it. Kohler is a 3-level scorer, but she's just not efficient from all 3 levels, and she never really has been in her career. You look at the numbers of this team in the regular season as a whole, 39.8% from the field. It's 10th in the conference. You look at MAC play, 37.4% shooting. The only team worse is Western Michigan at 37%. Western Michigan has 3 conference wins on the season. They have 7 wins overall. Buffalo is a better shooting team in conference play than Bowling Green. That's just not going to cut it.
No.
And no matter how you put the pieces, you can't shoot 37% from the field and expect to win.
And I wish I could say it's surprising too, but watching this women's team, their offense just hasn't really been impressive. Kind of comparing it to the Toledo game last night, we talk about Ruffin and Shackelford, off-ball pull-up. You talk about Javonte Campbell, Sam Towns. They can get it done. You talk about Goins and Glover inside. You have all these different spots. Myar Wall.
Justin Thomas.
Exactly. There's all these different spots that you can score from, and all these different guys that kind of have their niche thing that they're good at. And when you blend it all together, it's beautiful. I feel like this women's team's still kind of figuring that out. They have Kohler, they have Donahue, they have some of these great players, but when I watch them offensively, not impressed. Like, I can kind of see what they're trying to do, but it doesn't execute quite as beautifully as it does.
They don't
or as
flow
it should.
together
Yeah,
well.
that's
yet.
kind of what I'm trying to.
Is
yeah.
it a lot of
It's very
overlapping?
rigid.
Yeah,
It's like a.
I don't know
it's-
how to verbalize it.
Is
but
it
it's
is it overlapping skill sets at the same
kind
position?
of,
So
yeah.
like,
I think, and I've been saying this, and Lucas, who covers the team a lot closer than I do, travels with the team, kind of pushes back on me a little bit when I say this, but I don't think this team has an identity. I really don't think Fred Shamil has been able to build an identity for this team, whether that be an energetic moral identity in terms of this is what our values are as a team, this is how we're going to play, this is what we're going to be, or in terms of a purely how we're going to play, this is what we do on the court. We're a fast break team. We're going to hammer the offensive boards the entire game. We're going to be a Greg Popovich team, not go for the offensive boards. We'll get in transition. We'll be on the defensive boards. They don't have anything. Like, it switches every single game. There's nothing going in every game that I can say, yes, that is the Fred Shamil team. That's what I expect out of him with the Falcons. I don't think you can be successful without having an identity. Bowling Green men's basketball does. Whether, they execute it all the time or not.
that's the key for
it's
men's.
a,
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
the biggest
defensive team who is a efficient defensive rebounding team, pounds the paint, gets to the free throw line. 3-point shooting's not really in their identity. They want to be good at it, but it's not. It's getting to the line. It's playing good defense. It's being good on defensive rebounding. That's their identity. Yep. I don't know what women's basketball is.
And to piggyback off that, Tyler, I mean, Coach Shamil has mentioned before that he wants to be a fast-driven. He wants to be a team that, goes to the line, that forces those fouls. And, I mean, that was apparent earlier this year. I mean, you get 14 attempts in a quarter. Happened earlier this season is just insane to think about. But even then, it's partially execution. And there's that really fine line. And kind of going back to the old saying that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force him to drink. I think there's some part of it that's a balance. I think it falls on the players. It also falls on Coach Shamil, but he's got to be at the helm at it. And to think that you're trying to form something and it's not quite coming together, and there's just not that aspect of wanting to adapt to it. There's not that aspect of kind of trying to switch things up. Really trying to go a little bit more driving in because that shooting is going to fall a bit short at times. You just got to think about what do you really want to do, and that question has not been answered yet.
And he's not 100% wrong with them being wanting to be a free throw shooting team. They have the most free throw attempts in the MAC right now. Mm-hmm. It's just the other spots where they kind of fall short. Their 3-point percentages has been very rough all season.
Where that's negated is the turnovers.
Yes.
They turn the ball over 20 times a game. Yeah. It's tied for the second most in the conference. Ohio's the only team that does it more.
Yeah,
that's where you negate every free throw is you give it away in turnovers every single game. Like that just equals out.
Yeah, you can see where they want to be. They're getting up their 3-point shots. They're getting to the line offensively. They just, as of right now, they don't have that pure ball handler that you would like them to have. Donahue's a good ball handler. I'd like to see her as the number 2. You get a better pure ball handler in this team, someone to take the pressure off her and let her just drive, put her head down like Shackelford can do, or Campbell. That's probably where she would thrive best. But right now, that's she's being asked to be more of a point guard. But that's where they've got to make some changes. You got to find players to fit and get into these kind of molds better. And some of that is on the coaching staff to change the game plan to fit the players better, and some of that's also on the players buying in just a little bit more to fit the game plan as well.
And kind of adding off that, I don't want to continue to just compare the men's and women's teams, but we talk about the men's team's identity with defense and getting steals. Men's team, 19.2 points off turnovers, 15 forced turnovers per game. Women's team, 21st turnovers per game, 19.4 points off turnovers. They're actually getting more than the men's team, but their turnovers themselves are making it where it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, and you just can't have that. So we talked about it with Simon. I feel like there is, unquestionably a hotter seat for Fred Shamil. How hot do we think that seat is? What would it take for a coaching change to happen after this season?
he'd have to miss the MAC.
That's what I was gonna say.
You can't.
Do we think if they miss the MAC, like he's gone, that's it?
There's
or
conversations.
do
There's
you think-
conversations.
so you think it's
He's got a
yeah.
couple recruits coming in. One who played in the Spanish league with the club team. One who played in Australia with the club team there, and one of the top scorers. I don't know if it's in America or in the state of Ohio, coming in here for next year. So there's a couple pieces that you probably don't get without Fred Shamil being here. That being said, if you miss the MAC, or if you just barely get in and then get trounced in the first round as badly as Bowling Green's men's team did last year, they're going to start having conversations. I'm assuming 5-year contract, same as Todd Simon.
Yeah.
There's going to be conversations. I don't know if they get rid of him, but it's going to be hard to be, what they were before he came here,
Well,
multiple winning seasons.
That would be, Bowling Green women's basketball is the best women's basketball program in the history of the Mid-American Conference.
Yes.
It just is. Fred Shamil would have gone taking a Robin Freilich team that, wasn't coming off a championship, but had a championship-level roster and showed potential of a championship-level team. He would have taken that, albeit some pieces graduated, some pieces went to Michigan State, and would have proceeded to go 3 straight seasons without a tournament win.
Yeah, and that's where the big conversations are coming in.
That's just not the bar of success that this program has.
Yeah, with women's basketball, you have to have somebody who's year in and year out, one of the top teams in the MAC, making deep tournament runs, if not winning the MAC, getting into the NCAA championship, or, at one point hosting NIT games here in Bowling Green in the
Getting to a
Stro.
Fab Four.
Fab Four. There's a lot of history with this women's basketball team. I'm not wearing it right now. I have a 2019 Women's MAC Basketball Championship shirt. They have a great team.
Of course you have.
Yes, I do. What do you
Also
mean?
the type
Of
of
course
guy.
I
You
don't.
have a shirt for every college basketball team.
I'm
that's ever
working on it,
existed.
man. I'm working on that. But there's a lot of history with this women's basketball team, and they'll come back and you support this team through and through. But there's a lot, there's levels, and they can be at a much higher level than they are now.
Absolutely. I think I agree with you. I think if they were to get out in the first round, or if they didn't make it, I personally don't think that this would be his last year. But next year, all eyes would be on him, and that seat
would be red.
That
hot.
seat would be lava hot.
Yeah.
I mean, like Foster was saying, if you have some new recruits coming in, people who played for club teams over in Europe and Australia, I don't think you want to risk losing him by firing him after this season if you don't make the MAC tournament. But like you guys said, that seat next year, it's going to be scalding hot. If you don't make the MAC tournament this year, have a big loss, I feel like that's when the true conversations are going to pick up, and we're going to hear more around the media about is it the right fit? Because we have a high standard for women's basketball here.
Would like to say before we head to a break before wrapping up this women's basketball conversation, gymnastics played today, picked up their first Mid-American Conference victory in a long time. I believe it's their first Mid-American Conference victory since 2022.
Oh, wow.
They had 5 PRs today, an all-around fantastic performance at the Stroh Center. Defeated Northern Illinois 194.350 to 193.425. So just edged it out against the Huskies. Great win for that gymnastics crew over there at the Stroh Center. Back-to-back nice days at the Stroh
Absolutely,
Center.
yeah. Good, good things happening in the Stroh Center. NIU leaving the MAC in kind of an unceremoniously way. Even their gymnastics failing to take wins. But, what can we say about a team leaving the MAC?
Well, and
adding.
reportedly have another team joining the MAC. We'll save that for another week when that gets official by the Mid-American Conference. Right now, that's just reports. So next, women's basketball is in action against Western Michigan at the Stroh Center on Wednesday, February 18th. That's a 7 p.m. tip-off. Lucas Kleinmeyer, Carter Leonard on the call on WBGU 88.1 FM right here. You will have a pregame show of Sam Bork, Kevin Hutchinson, and Jacob Kopaz right there. You guys will be on starting at about 6:35 for that pregame show, so make sure to tune in right here on WBGU 88.1 FM on Wednesday at about 6:35 for that one. But with that, we're going to head to a break. When we come back, we're going to have some hockey discussion. BGSU hockey splitting their latest series. We'll tell you where they stand right now in the conference and what the outlook is for them the rest of the season. You are listening to the Zig Zone right here on WBGU 88.1 FM.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
Falcon Media Sports Network writes and publishes over 1,000 stories per year, including game previews, recaps, sidebars, opinion pieces, feature stories, and more. Head over to bgfalconmedia.com to view all of our content for every sport throughout the year.
Hey BG Falcon fans, you're here with Paige Kohler on the women's basketball team. These are my Falcon 4 favorite things about basketball. First off, I love competing. I love being able to win, and I love the winning feeling. Second, I love that it's a team sport. I love being out there with 4 other people on the court. Third, all the traveling that we get to do. I've been to so many new places because of basketball. And lastly, I love making new friends and just playing the sport I love with my best friends.
Welcome back to the Zig Zone here on WBGU 88.1 FM. If you're just tuning in, we already have talked about men's basketball, women's basketball. If you miss any of this discussion, you can go to bgfalconmedia.com and you'll be able to view the rebroadcast of this along with some timestamps so you can skip ahead to your favorite parts. That's always on bgfalconmedia.com, where you can find all of the news and updates about BGSU athletics from the Falcon Media Sports Network. So now we're going to switch it over into a little bit of hockey. BGSU hockey 16-8-6 overall, 13-6-3 in CCHA play. They just came off a split in their latest series against one of the better teams in the conference, number 18 Augustana. 1-0 win in Sioux Falls, South Dakota on Friday. 4-2 loss on Saturday. Dan, you're kind of our resident hockey guy in the room currently. Where do you think this team is right now? What are your thoughts on the performance over the weekend?
This team, though, obviously you kind of have that sour taste in your mouth after Saturday night, and it didn't go the way that you wanted it to. However, if you look at the bigger picture from last weekend into this weekend, out of 4 games, you only lose 1. You're able to win 2 of them and then send 1 to overtime. Is just, you got to consider that aspect of it. But overall, they're standing in a good spot right now. Above this in the CCHA standings, which is another thing we'll get into briefly, but you're going to get Minnesota State next weekend, and you're going to be able to get the Madhouse on Mercer, which is what you have to look forward to, which is, you know, what you anticipated. You got St. Thomas and Notre Dame, which are attendance-wise and just, you know, homestand-wise, big to have. I mean, Notre Dame being able to tie them, and then you're able to get St. Thomas and win against them on Saturdays is something that you're considering, something that you know is going on. And especially, too, this is your last home series for the season. And where you're standing right now, yes, you're going to get that home bid. But even then, you're a team that's kind of floating around that 3rd, 4th spot against Augustana. And if you're able to get that victory against Minnesota State, take into consideration, too, that maybe even you jump up into that 2nd spot. Because consider, too, when Bowling Green had that series against Notre Dame, everyone else in the CCHA had conference play. Bowling Green did not, which kind of hurt them a little bit at the time. But looking at the bigger picture, you realize that now you're going to be able to have that opportunity to be able to jump ahead, as Bowling Green's a team right now that should be in third place in the CCHA with a 13-6-3 record. You got 2 less losses than Augustana, and you're being penalized for your schedule that you can't control. Even with the fewer games, you're going to get the same amount of wins as Augustana, but they're going to be put back behind. Just makes no sense to me. The other thing, Tyler, that doesn't make sense to me is that you are above the standings but not ranked. Minnesota State is a team that, according to the NPI polls, is ranked. However, is a step behind Bowling Green in that 5th spot, which, I mean, on paper, it doesn't really matter between that 3rd and 4th spot because Bowling Green will get home ice advantage either way. But when you have to look at who you'll play, either Lake Superior or, as of now, Ferris State, who you would much rather have, it just kind of looks into consideration who you're going to want to look at, who you're going to want to have for the near future. And, I mean, beyond that, just what is your postseason going to look like? With those 3 right now, they're kind of just near the bottom of the pack in Bemidji State, Lake Superior, and then Ferris State.
Biggest news, I think, of the weekend has to be your situation now in the net.
Mm-hmm.
Colmore, fantastic first game performance of the series. Puts on a shutout performance against a ranked team. Mm-hmm. Terrific performance. Probably the best performance, I mean, arguably, that we've seen of him in his Bowling Green career. By far the best this season. But then you have Jacob Steinman on Saturday, starts the game off solid, 5 saves, and then in the melee of, bending back and forth for one of the saves, appears to screw with something in his lower body. Don't know what it was, but he leaves the game with that lower body injury that was a non-contact injury. Don't exactly know the status of him right now. You had Tyler Palmer come into the game to finish it. Where does that leave the Falcons right now in their goaltending situation?
It's going to be interesting to see where this actually ends up going. I mean, but something that Coach Williams has talked about endlessly is how he's confident in all 3 of his goaltenders, Palmer, Steinman, and Moore, and how he knows he can trust them and really knows what they're going to bring to the table. But yeah, you talk about Cole Moore's performance on Friday, what could be his best in the orange and brown uniform. That's a very legitimate and reasonable take. So you look at what he's got there, and then you look at Steinman, who normally that's kind of the trend that Willie's been following. It's going to be more Friday, Steinman Saturday, or vice versa. But even then, it's a tough one to go if it's lower body. I mean, you could speculate that it's a tendon, it's a groin, either way. You'll have to see what that's going to mean for St. Thomas Minnesota State, what that's going to look for them, however this will go in the future. But even just for the bigger picture wise, where do you want to put yourself, not only in the goaltending spot, but kind of just on the offensive spot as well, when you're kind of trying to fight for that 3rd or maybe even 2nd place spot in the CCHA, because it was St. Thomas's conference for the longest time, Michigan Tech coming out of nowhere and getting that number 1 spot. But teams like Bemidji State that we expected to be up near the top are kind of falling off, as Minnesota State's kind of been similar in that trend. And then you just got the 3 of Lake Superior, Ferris State, and Northern Michigan, who have just had difficult years, to say the least.
If Steinman is forced to miss some extended time, which, again, we don't know if that's going to be the case or not, would you expect Willie to go with Cole Moore in net both games of series on Friday, Saturday, or would you expect to see it split between Moore and Palmer?
I don't hate the idea of Cole Moore playing 2 games in a weekend. It's very demanding and it's very tiresome just for a goaltender or anybody to be in every single minute for the entire weekend. But I will say that it's reasonable. It could happen, just kind of talking about where you'll end up going with it. But also, too, I don't think that's a place that Coach Williams wants to put Moore in a situation. If he has to, he will. But either way, you look at Palmer, you know that he's going to be there to help out if he has to. So you know that you're able to count on him and Moore. But this just shows that injuries, I mean, Brett Foe gets hurt against Notre Dame in garbage time. Dalton Norris has just had difficulties with injury. Speculated that he may come back this weekend against Minnesota State. But injuries have just really plagued the orange and brown lately, and it's kind of been those 3 of Norris, Foe, and then Moore.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at Foe and Norris, how critical is it right now that this team gets those guys back? I mean, first of all, maybe for this weekend, if you're talking about one of them possibly being back, but even not, just having them back come postseason time, do we think that the team could have success without them in the postseason, or do you think they're going to need one of the two or both of them on the ice for those?
To be honest, it's not really a clear-cut answer. I mean, this team is not a one-man show by any means, but also you kind of need those role players to step up. And, I mean, Norris seems a lot more likely than Foe at this point, just with everything that Foe was posting about, that was reposted by his teammates. So we'll see what that happens in the near future. It could see Dalton Norris come back in the regular season, but, I mean, Foe seems unlikely at this moment. You talk about wanting to get them back. Norris is your captain. Norris is your leader. Him and Jaden Grant have kind of been those cornerstones that you rely on heavily. And then Brett Foe, too, is Tyler Hodson, Quinn Emerson kind of three that maybe not everybody knows, but stat-wise, they really get themselves up there and they really know how to make a difference and just rush it. But now that you're going to look at it, I think the biggest thing, though, is your offense is going to need a little bit more extra help, so defense is going to step up, which is then going to fall back to, can Gustav Sternberg be disciplined? And obviously there's a physicality to play, but sometimes you cross over that line, as we saw just in that series against St. Thomas, and then ended up being suspended Friday, but Saturday he was able to stay clean, and then 4 seconds left in the game, he ends up getting a penalty. So
if I'm correct, he still has the alternate captain patch.
I believe
right?
You are correct, yes.
So that was also added to Emerson. Correct. Do you think Willie giving Emerson an alternate, which I feel like he deserved?
Right.
I think he probably should have had one at the start of the year.
Yeah.
But Willie giving him one, do you think that might have been a wake up for Sternberg of like, hey, I'm not going to take this away from you, but we're adding another alternate captain? Is that a wake up for him that he needs to be more disciplined, do you think? And if that is, do you think that's going to work and help him stay on the ice a little longer for the team?
Well, I can't read Sternberg's mind, obviously. It could be, is kind of just the answer I'm going to have for now. I mean, it's kind of just hard to tell, especially kind of with that vast difference. But, I mean, Sternberg's been a guy that has kind of had his way around the block, has been more familiar for the past couple seasons, where Quinn Emerson has, on the other hand, has kind of been under the spotlight and then has a breakout year this year. But even then, it's not like Emerson's come out of nowhere and all of a sudden he's something. It's been just building those steps, building those baby steps throughout the years. But Sternberg, too, just plays a vastly different game as kind of just that forefront of the defense, which is, I'd say, based off just valid predictions, why he has that A on his chest is because he's the leader of that physical defense that everybody seems to have, as opposed to a Ty Higgins, just that you're talking about, really goes and is using more of his speed than his physicality. But for a defensive standpoint, that's what you need, is you can't just have a bunch of physical defensemen. You'll end up getting burnt out. You'll end up getting somebody behind you. If you have those fast defense that may not be able to deliver the highlight hits that Sternberg's able to, but is able to clear the puck out, break it out, read the ice, able to be able to pinch in. Ty Higgins, we saw it against Notre Dame, pinches the puck phenomenally. You look at him going down, you look at Bowling Green on the power play, he's able to get back in 2 seconds, go from the blue line up to the red line, just able to take that going for him. It's going to be interesting to see, though, just long answer short, what happens in the future for either, moving along, but it definitely could have been a wake-up call.
Rest of the room, how do we kind of feel about where this team is right now? Again, right now, fourth in the standings. They have 2 games less played than Augustana and 2 less points, so could very well be third once that gets evened out. 2 points ahead of Minnesota State with the same number of games played. Would have a home playoff game right now if it were to be where it is. Are we comfortable with the team if the season ends today? Playing it would be Minnesota State at home?
Personally, I would be. You had really good 2 weekends in a row, faced St. Thomas, and when you played them, they were first in the CCHA at that point in time, and you won the series against them. You took more points that weekend. And then following it up, you had the weekend that we just had against Augustana, where you won a game and then lost a game. You'd hope to not lose the game in regulation, but you still got 3 points out of the weekend against a ranked team. And this weekend's going to be big against Minnesota State. It's do or die, as we've talked about before. They're 2 points below us in the standings, but I really think this Bowling Green team could do something special. I think they could, once they make the CCHA playoffs, I think they could go on a run, and they have a lot of good pieces. I mean, we were talking about the assistant captain stuff earlier with Sternberg and Emerson, but I really don't think it is a wake-up call for Sternberg. I think it's more you have Dalton Norris out for a good amount of time, and you have a guy like Emerson who is having a career year, and they probably just wanted to reward him realistically, maybe as he's a voice back in the locker room, helping his teammates out. And I think that's honestly a good sign for this Falcon team. You're not taking away assistant captains, you're adding, and you're showing that it's not just we're not losing people, but we're really having more guys step up in our locker room right now.
I'd be comfortable with the team. I going in at 4 now. I'd like them to be at 3. I mean, who wouldn't want the little bit higher seeding going into a postseason play? You look at the time they've played Minnesota State once this season already, early November. So a lot has changed with both teams since then. Both games going into shootouts, a loss 1-2, and then a win 1-0 against Minnesota State. It was on the road in Minnesota.
Yeah.
So you have a chance, at home. You have a big chance here to extend that lead. It's only 2 points, so you got to take that little bit of a lead and hold Minnesota State off going into playoff time.
And I mean, it really isn't the most favorable schedule remaining for Bowling Green in their 2 series left. You have Minnesota State, who, like I said, is 2 points behind the Falcons, same number of games played. So they'll be trying to take that home playoff spot as it stands right now from Bowling Green coming into Slater Family Ice Arena. And then you have Michigan Tech, who, as it stands right now, is first in the CCHA. Albeit they have 1 more point in 2 more games played than St. Thomas. So you can make the argument that, well, if games are equal, they're probably the number 2 team. That would mean that St. Thomas has to take care of business. But as it stands right now, that's the number 1 team in the conference that the Falcons have to end the season with, and that's going on the road up to Michigan to face that. So I feel like that just makes this Minnesota State series even more critical.
Right.
What's the number of points that you feel comfortable taking against Minnesota State if you're Bowling Green?
Bowling Green's still in a kind of nothing left to lose kind of mentality, I'd say, because either way, you play better than you have been, you win out, and then you get that 3rd, maybe even 2nd spot in the Mason Cup. But if you play like you have been, then you're going to be a 4th place team, and you'll still get the Madhouse on Mercer going in your momentum. So you look at that and you realize that's something to take advantage of. But I mean, also too, just going back to, I guess, the future of it and where you're at right now, this is an opportunity to grow, and this is an opportunity to really shine, I'd suppose, just because when you went to Mankato, you were able to get the momentum there. You know what it takes to eventually get there. But point-wise, I mean, it's been that really just you're going to split whether you win Friday, lose Saturday, or win Saturday, lose Friday. I mean, that's where you're going to want to be right now, is kind of splitting. So that's kind of looking at a 3, maybe even a 4 if you take it going and are able to win somewhere else. But obviously, with Coach Willie's mindset, it's going to be we're going to take 6 points and then we're going to go to Houghton. So ideally, you're going to want to get 6 points. If that's possible, we'll have to see.
It'll be interesting to see for sure with the Falcons, as, like I said, they have that Minnesota State series next. That will be a Friday-Saturday series. As always, Friday is a 7:07 p.m. puck drop. Ben Korak, Kevin Hutchinson on the call. You will have Nate Hinners, Andrew Halkowski, Carter Leonard in the studio. They'll start a pregame show about 6:45 p.m. again on WBGU 88.1 FM right here. And then Saturday, it's going to be Ben Korak and Dan. You'll be on the call alongside him. That's a 6:07 p.m. puck drop. Gavin Gill, Artie Abrego, Jacob Kopaz to my left will be in the studio for that one. about 5:45 p.m. You guys will be going on for a pregame show, also here on WBGU 88.1 FM. So I feel like hockey definitely, I think, is a more, before we officially wrap it up, a more comfortable spot than the basketballs. Mm-hmm. Can we say that pretty confidently?
Yeah,
For sure.
You know, I think, though, it's just so important for that program to get a home series for the playoffs. I think Willie needs to figure out a way for that team to deliver on that.
He's talked about it multiple times, just the Madhouse on Mercer. It's just a historic barn. It's a historic, the student section, the bleacher creatures. I mean, fond memories, nothing's changed since, I was a kid going. So it's going to be critical to have that, and BG has put themselves in a comfortable position to get that 3rd or 4th seed and have it. So we'll just have to see what kind of goes along with it in the future. But the key point about hockey, too, I'd like to make before we wrap up, out of all the, I guess, sports on campus, hockey's the only one where you're not really fighting. You're fighting for more than just a conference championship, if that makes sense. Like the footballs, the basketballs, fighting be on top of the MAC. BG hockey has a clear goal and a clear opportunity to win a national title, to be in the NCAA tournament, possibly make a Frozen Four. It's happened before, and it can happen again. The last time Bowling Green was in the NCAA tournament was 2019, so fairly recent. We'll just have to see if they can put themselves in that position this year and what's going to happen going forward.
Will definitely be interesting to see how they're able to finish out the season there. We're going to take another quick break here. When we come back, we're going to move on to some softball, who is off to just a tremendous start to their season. We'll tell you more about that when we get back here on the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM.
Did you know Falcon Media Sports Network has video highlights of BGSU athletic events? To see all the moments from your favorite BGSU teams and athletes, head over to the BG Falcon Media YouTube channel or view them on bgfalconmedia.com.
Hi everyone, it's Erica Porter with Bowling Green Women's Basketball, and here's my Falcon 4 favorite activities off the court. I do like to go shopping in my free time. If I'm back home in New Jersey, I do love to go to New York City and go thrifting in like the Soho area. I do like hanging out with my hometown friends. I could do literally absolutely nothing with them as long as I'm in their presence. I love it. And what would my last one be? Oh, being around my sister, because I don't see her a lot.
Welcome back to the Zig Zone here on WBGU 88.1 FM. Again, Tyler Kavlich, Jacob Kopaz, Dan Reinauer, Dawson Pelter, and Foster Rosti, your crew in the studio today. And we are now moving on to some BGSU softball action. I mean, Dawson, you're one of our softball beats. Could have you asked for a better start to the softball season by Michelle Gardner and this team or not? 6-1, 3 straight wins.
Yep.
Just taking care of business right now.
They are, yep. And you mentioned, could you want a better start? You cannot. 6-1 ties the best start in program history, matching the starts of 2006 and 2018. It was a great weekend. Purple and White Classic. Reeled off 3 straight wins to close. Honestly, I think my favorite part about these wins is kind of the way that they've won, right? These haven't just been easy wins. They've had to come back from some deficits. But I think that's the part that I like about it, and the way I ironically actually want it, is that they're proving that no lead, no deficit is safe, right? They trailed late versus Lipscomb on Friday. They gave up the lead in the 6th, but then rallied in the bottom of the 7th for a walk-off win, 98. Shout out Katie Hutter, sacrifice fly, ends up winning that one. Then you had Towson on Saturday. They were down 7-1 second inning, and then BGSU chipped away, took the lead, lost the lead, and then eventually won in a thriller 11-10 victory. So it's such exciting softball to watch. I can't wait until they're done with all these tournaments, come back home to BG, because these are going to be some very exciting wins for sure.
I mean, 4 of those 6 wins by 2 runs or less.
Yeah.
Opened the season 7-5 over Queens, 11-9 over Hampton. Then you really, you dominate Furman 17-8. Drop your only loss of the season so far to Furman 10-4. 7-2 over Towson, and then 9-8 Lipscomb, 11-10 Towson, back-to-back 1-run wins. And, I think the thing that strikes me most, and I think everyone else in this room can also, agree with this, when you think back to the past couple years, especially before Michelle Gardner got here, of where this program was.
Yeah.
And it really looked like there was no light and no hope and no chance that this program would be any good, to Michelle Gardner coming in, and now you start 6-1. The absolute turnaround is incredible in how short of time she's been able to do it.
Absolutely. And shout out Gardner, got her 400th career win on
Big
Thursday.
milestone.
Yep, huge milestone for her. It's a completely different team, right? Last year didn't do quite as well as you'd want, but rebuild year, right? Establish that culture, and then this year they're really we talk about some of the other sports and identity. This team has an identity, right? This is a hard hitting softball team, excuse me. They're generating a lot of offense too, which you love to see. I mean, you look at some of these scores, right? 17-8, 11-9, right? 11-10. These aren't just small winning some scores. So they're doing great, and I'm really impressed with them.
Do we have any barometer of how good these teams that they're facing right now at this point in the season are?
They are, yeah. So Lipscomb last year 25-30, Towson 23-29 last year, and then Furman 15-38. So
not terrible teams, not pushovers.
Our level that we
exactly
were at last year, a good starting matchup.
Exactly. Queens and Hampton last year, looking at the games last week, also very similar. So very, very similar, comparable competition to us. And when you're 6-1 against competition very, very, very similar, you'll take it. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and adding on to that, I think this is probably a great confidence boost for the softball team. Yeah. I mean, as going along with the amount of runs they scored, they also, and I mean, in the first game against Furman, they had 13 walks and they went 10 for 10 on stolen bases. So that's just showing how aggressive this team is being. It looks like Michelle Gardner is really hammering in what she wants this team to do game by game, and it is working out fabulously.
Absolutely. And you look at some of these players, too, that we've got. Ashley Chevalier, she's been clutch, right? Furman, game 1, going 3 for 4 with a double and a career-high 6 RBIs. That's awesome. In the comeback win, she had the 3 RBIs and then a single that gave BGSU the lead, and then a hit by pitch with bases loaded. Cameron Kaufman, she scored 4 runs and stole 3 bases and walked twice in Furman game 1. And then Mackenzie, Krafsick, sorry. Mackenzie Krafsick, she threw a complete game victory against Towson, allowing 0 earned runs, and then came out of the bullpen in a one-run game with runners on the corners and struck out the batter to end the threat, eventually earning the save. So the players are doing great, team's doing great. It's, especially this early on, it's definitely what you love to see.
As a team especially, too. I mean, you have that batting average of 318. I mean, your OPS just in a .905. I mean, really just what you wanted to see out of a team, what you want to see, just that fluidness, that come together. I mean, Cameron Kaufman as well, a 375 average in their 24 at-bats, has been able to get a double, get 9 hits. I mean, it's all these just things that really start to add up for this team. And, I mean, what you really want to do in any season, no matter the sport, is get that advantage early. Get that momentum going forward. And even if you're not going to be in Northwest Ohio to play these games, still get that momentum, still know that you can go out on the road and just build that confidence going forward. This is going to be a good cornerstone for how the rest of the year will go.
And I think, to your point, that's exactly what this is. Because you look at even next weekend, ETSU tournament playing against ETSU and Tennessee State, also very similar programs looking at last year's record. So that's exactly what this period is. I think that's a great way to put it. This is the confidence booster where you figure out who you are as a team, figure out some of the lineups that you want to go with, and then once it really hits that max schedule, you're all set and ready to go.
Yeah, and wanted to add, I mean, it's not just the players we had from last year contributing. The transfers that Michelle Gardner brought in, they have been doing great so far. Like Kendall Matthews, she homered in the first 2 games of the season, and one of those was a 2-run homer against, I mean, they were both against Furman. But she has been playing great to start the season. I am seeing her name come across the box score so many times, and that goes along with all the other transfers that came in, because I believe there's 3 that came in this season. And it looks like a well-meshed unit. They're working great together. You're getting runs from all points of the lineup, and it's really just a cohesive unit right now.
Have there been any of the, you look at the transfers too, but have there been any of the returning players that have started the season off hot that maybe maybe you wouldn't expect is the wrong term, but that kind of were under the radar, that you're looking at them to see if they're going to take a jump and they're showing signs of taking that jump? Have there been any of those players so far for us to keep our eyes on?
I honestly, I feel like everybody's been doing a pretty good job across the board. There hasn't been anybody in particular for me that I'm like, this is really great. Everybody's just been doing their job and getting done what they need to. Everybody's been contributing well. I mentioned a couple of the players earlier, but you seeing a lot of RBIs, seeing a lot of runs. The one stat that I wanted to mention too, where is it? For the Thursday's Furman game when they won 17-8, most runs BGSU has scored in a game since 2019. So
pre-COVID.
Yeah. So
wow.
Softball's just doing great. Like
But I mean that speaks again to the turnaround. Like 17 runs is not, it's a very good mark. But I think what I'm trying to get at is it's not a mark that's unreachable in softball.
Yeah.
And for it to have been 2019 since they hit that mark, that's pretty incredible.
It's over half a decade.
Yeah.
We're 2026 now.
Yeah.
Like it's
You're making me feel old now by saying that.
Yeah. Yeah, you feel old. I graduated in 2019, man.
I was gonna say, I was wondering if Foster was at that game in 2019.
Right, the basketball team was scouting me at that time.
Yeah, but I mean it's just a great start. Well, you mentioned the Eastern Tennessee State University tournament coming up down Johnson City, Tennessee. You get ETSU for 3, you get Tennessee State for 2, and then you continue on. Make It Happen games, I guess that's the tournament name.
Great tournament name.
Interesting. Illinois State, UIC, Albany, Colgate, Bethune-Cookman. They throw 5 at you. And then you go Coastal Carolina, Charleston Southern, a doubleheader. Then you're finally to MAC play. It feels like all of those set up this team to be in a very good position if they're able to continue the success, confidence-wise, heading into conference play. What's a realistic mark that you're looking at this team to be at, looking a few weeks ahead? Where do you think this team could become conference play?
I've got high expectations for them. I'm that type of guy. I'm hoping middle of the MAC for them. A lot of these girls, talking to them in the preseason, a big goal for them is making the MAC tournament. So it's something that we haven't seen them do in a couple of years. But if they can do that, if they can make the tournament, great year for them. A lot of other things they mentioned, obviously being Toledo.
That'd be a nice one too.
It'd be a great
that's
one.
always a confidence booster for any team. It doesn't matter.
So I think middle of the MAC for sure is what I'm really hoping for them to do. And the way it looks with how they've been playing so far, the way that their confidence is building, the way that this culture has been shaping within this team, I think it's definitely reasonable and wouldn't be that crazy to say that.
And I know you talked about this team having an identity. What exactly, I know you talked about, heavy hitting team. What exactly is the identity of this team? And you also mentioned culture. How do you feel that the culture has even shifted from last year to this year, from the action that you've been able to see through practices or through a TV screen watching them down in Virginia?
obviously we mentioned the heavy hitting, right? But I think the grittiness is the biggest thing. Some of these games, they're coming back from huge deficits. And the fact that you can stay in these games, a lot of these games, I don't know how they're not just folding over, right? You especially when they're back and forth and you're giving up leads and all of a sudden you can come back. I think it speaks volumes and will especially matter a lot when you carry over into some of these MAC games when you are down and you're like, hold up, like we've been in this situation before where we're gritty and we're competitive and we're in this. Like I think we've spoken obviously a lot on how big this season matters, and I say season not in the term of this season, but this early stretch for their confidence. But I think once MAC play comes around, it's going to matter so much for them to see situations that they've already been in against comparable teams.
Yeah. And I'll say this team, I know it's only been 7 games, and it's so early to say crazy statements.
It's never too early.
But it has a little bit of a feel of the 2024 BGSU baseball team. That team went on to win the MAC regular season championship. They were a team that was not highly looked upon going into the season. They were predicted one of the worst teams in the conference. Softball is not predicted one of the best teams.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're going to win the conference, but what I'm getting at is that BGSU baseball team played the whole season with an identity for the first time in a long time. Played the season with a fully revamped culture. Was led by a group of veterans, which the softball team has, with a mix of transfers added in for really the first time in the program. This feels like one of the first times you've had impactful transfers added, impacting the program from day one that they've been on the roster. That BGSU baseball team had all the fight in the world in them and came back from so many games that they were just dead on in the 4th, 5th inning, even as late as the 7th, 8th, or 9th inning. There's a lot of similarities when you think about
the way you're saying
between that BGSU baseball team and this softball team. And again, that baseball team played a lot more games, finishing a full season versus the 7 that softball team has played. But just early on, it just brings me back a little bit, a couple years ago, to watching that baseball team break out of the shell and introduce themselves to the rest of the MAC. Like, we are here. We're a top program now. I think softball has a chance if they can stay healthy and figure out a way to ball this up, that they could really shock some people.
Absolutely, yeah. You're feeling a little deja vu when you're
just a little bit. But it's very reminiscent of how, this team's not expected to do. What were they in the preseason poll?
They were there were 2 teams below them.
So, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Next up, again, they have the ETSU tournament. That starts this Friday. They'll play ETSU at 1 p.m. on the 20th on Friday. That's the only game on Friday. They'll play Tennessee State at 10:30 a.m. on Saturday before ETSU at 1 p.m. on Saturday. And then ETSU at 10:30 a.m. on Sunday, Tennessee State 1 p.m. on Sunday. All of that going down in Johnson City, Tennessee. Stay tuned to bgfalconmedia.com for all of the news and updates regarding the softball team. So now we got about half an hour left in the show. Want to pivot over to BGSU baseball, which, completely different start to the season than softball had.
Just a little bit.
Going up against as high-ranked number 2 in the country, as low-ranked number 5 in the country. They're somewhere in there, depending on what poll you look at. If you look at the NCAA's poll, they're number 5 in the country. They claim they're number 2. Georgia Tech, down at Russ Chandler Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, was a rough one for them. 11-5 loss on Friday. They hung in that game, tested Georgia Tech, felt like Georgia Tech was still just not playing at their best that first game nerves. Then they beat Bowling Green 27-4 on Saturday. Gave them a little bit of a shellacking, and they had a doubleheader on Saturday because of some weather. The run rule was on the second game, 12-2. What are our thoughts in the room on that one? I know from my perspective, it's Bowling. I don't think people realize the impact that being able to play outside versus practicing inside and having to go to play outside has.
Yeah.
That's a huge impact in terms of baseball. The ball flies differently. You see it differently. It feels differently. You're also facing a team that, in my opinion, has the best player in college baseball in Barres and is going to be competing for a national championship in a few months. We'll see how right I am on that, but they're a consensus top team in the country. But what's our thoughts on how the first weekend of the season goes for BGSU baseball?
I mean, you're playing a top team in the nation. It's not like we couldn't have seen this coming. They're one of the best teams in the nation. You don't get that highly ranked in baseball for no reason, and they showed why. There's growing pains. There's going to be growing pains every year. But when you go up against the top team, it really shows you what you got to get better at. And they'll figure. I mean, I trust this team. I trust this coaching staff. We've seen it year in and year out. They'll figure out what they got to do, and they'll come MAC time. They'll be fine. They'll be ready to go. Full trust in this coaching staff.
Yeah, I mean, you are, like Foster said, you're going against as high as number 4 rated and as low as number 5, Georgia Tech. You, coming from a Bowling Green perspective, you weren't really expecting much going into this series. It's good to get players in, get some reps in, and like Tyler said, it's a lot different getting outside. So it's good to get all the players in. They can all get at least some reps, see the ball fly at them, get some reps in the dirt, and really just start getting ready for the real season. Georgia Tech, it's nice to go down there, play them, but we'll start focusing on the MAC games when that actually gets here. And like Foster said, I have complete confidence. I think once we get to MAC time, we'll see the BGSU baseball team that you're used to.
Exactly. And I mean, part of that is just the way that it's kind of been led into of the 80-10-10 mentality, where 80% of the games are up for grabs. If you go out there and compete, it could go either way. You could win, you could lose. It depends on just how the game goes. Then another 10%, it's gonna be just that kind of simple victory. Think about the lower teams. Think about like the Samfords, the Tiffins, if you will. But then there's a 10% of games where you just know that you're gonna lose. So you have to kind of translate that energy into, let's get guys reps, let's get guys playing time, and let's just see how that goes. I mean, talking before the show, Tyler, you were talking about the pitching staff and how they were just putting guys in that were just brand new to this environment for the season. So I think this was more of a let's learn and let's take this opportunity for what it is. We get to go to Georgia Tech and play at their facility. We get to play at one of the nicest baseball fields, one of the best teams in the country. And then let's get that reps and let's get the foot under us, if you will, once we roll along, once we get into those games. And then going back to it, it's going to be a while until we're at Stellar Field for the season. If I'm not mistaken, Tyler, March 17th is our first home game.
Yeah, it's end of March.
So
middle of March, I should say, yeah.
Post MAC basketball tournament.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that should make your life a little easier, Tyler. But either way, you're going to have a little while before you're home, so just take as much opportunity as you can and get those guys acclimated to where you can go.
Yeah, and I you were right on that of who exactly Bowling Green threw. I mean, you threw Joey Buchanan, Carson Lumley, and Jackson Miller, some young guys in there that really haven't seen any experience in that second game against a top team in the country. But Bowling Green led in that second game against the number, we'll call them 5 team in the country, since the polls can't figure out what they want to agree on. Then you give up 11 runs in an inning, and at that point you're kind of just going, let's just get out of here with some experience. And I think everyone is just jarred seeing a 27-4 score. You got to remember, 2 years ago this team BG put up 33 on a conference opponent in Ohio. Like, stuff like that happens in college baseball sometimes when you're going up against good teams. I don't think it's time to overreact to that just yet. I will say one of the bright spots was Sam Seidel in the series. He's one of the guys you're looking to see if he can take a leap from a borderline all-conference player to an elite conference player, a guy that can compete for an all-MAC first-team selection. He went 5 for 8 in the series against Georgia Tech, scored twice, hit 2 doubles, clubbed a home run over the right field fence, drove in 4 runs, It was great to see the power from him. That's something that we haven't seen a ton during his career, and to see it against a team like Georgia Tech is very promising. Paulie Mancino also stood out, 4 for 11, transferring from Ohio. The outfielder scored twice, and he looked fantastic. I should note, too, Sam Seidel, 5 walks to 1 strikeout on base machine. So that was good to see as well. 4 stolen bases, too. Talking to the coaching staff before the season, they thought he could hit 15. He's got 4 through 3 games.
Yeah. And I think all that good that you just mentioned is what you really just have to take out of this game.
Yeah.
Right? It's a fifth-ranked opponent. I think this Friday against Western Carolina last year, they were 30-28. I think that'll be just a little bit more telling of what this team's really looking like.
A little bit more on your level instead of the number 5 ranked team in the nation.
Yeah. Get some players some experience against a really good opponent in this last one. Whatever good you can take from it, take that. Whatever bad happens, take it with a grain of salt and just keep looking forward. Don't hang your head too much, because that Georgia Tech team is going to beat a lot of people this year. So
yes, they are. They are indeed. It is also just interesting to see how Kyle Hallock and the coaching staff position these pieces, because he's already mixing stuff up, which any coach will, but Hallock, more than others, seems to like moving his chess pieces as often as he can. There's a lot of depth on this team, a lot of new guys, so that'll be interesting to see how this team is positioned throughout the season, especially early on, as guys get some at-bats under their belt. Like you said, Western Carolina up next at Hennon Stadium down in North Carolina. That's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday series, 3 p.m. Friday, 2 p.m. Saturday, 1 p.m. Sunday. We'll have coverage of that on bgfalconmedia.com. And then they'll go and play Cincinnati on Tuesday, February 24th at 4 p.m. We may have a broadcast for that one. Nothing official yet. Stay tuned for that. We'll let you know. That could be the first BGSU baseball broadcast of the season, as long as radio availability and weather hold out for us. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have the final segment of the show, and you'll find out what that is when we come back here on the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM.
Unlike other local sources, Falcon Media Sports Network and BG Falcon Media will never charge a paywall to view our content. However, if you are looking to support student media, you can donate at the bottom of our stories on bgfalconmedia.com.
BGSU Hockey announced that senior forward Quinn Emerson will serve as an alternate captain for the remainder of the 2025-26 season. Emerson will join fellow alternate captains Jaden Grant and Gustav Stjernberg, along with team captain Dalton Norris, as the Falcons' leadership group. Quinn Emerson has had a career year in his senior season by setting career highs in goals, assists, and points, while also leading the team in points and assists, while being tied for the team lead in goals. In total, Emerson has scored 30 points, made up of 9 goals and 21 assists. Said head coach Dennis Williams, "I am very honored to add Quinn to our leadership group. He shows up every single day with a team-first mindset, leads with genuine care for his teammates, and plays the game the right way, shift after shift, night after night." This has been 60 Seconds in Falcon Athletics.
Welcome back to the Zig Zone here on WBGU 88.1 FM. We have the final segment of the show right now, and I'm going to throw this just out as a discussion question. Not official, but as close to official as we've gotten. Sacramento State looking like they're coming to the Mid-American Conference. What are our honest thoughts on Sacramento State possibly being a part of the MAC as a football-only member, but still a part of the MAC?
I will say, I will say, just recently coming back from California, it's a very beautiful state. The weather's nice. I mean, you look at you look at that too, but it's like roughly a 5
I'm gonna
hour.
have to pay an arm and a leg to get a plane ticket out there.
Well, that too. It's a 5 hour flight roughly. It's a 3 hour time difference, so you kind of consider that. But I mean, we've seen moves of a California team joining a more Midwest conference in the Big Ten with UCLA, but I mean, obviously the Big Ten is a lot bigger and has a lot more resources than the MAC does. Exactly, like you're saying, money. So we'll see what, that goes with it. But money was also just a big, I guess, decision maker behind this, just with the payout that Sacramento State's going to get. But I guess, long story short, as long as Bowling Green doesn't have to travel, they come to us. I have no problem with it.
I'm very excited for Tuesday night action at 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's gonna be great. I can't wait for that. I wish it was a full all of their sports. I know it's crazy. Just for
wait, you're in favor of it?
No, I don't want them to be joining. If they're joining, go all in.
Yeah.
Basketball, all of them.
Well, I wonder how much the entry fee would have been if Sacramento State would have brought all their sports over, because they're already paying $23 million reportedly from ESPN, $23 million to join the MAC. That's $18 million to the conference, and then $5 million to the NCAA for moving up from FCS to FBS. That is a higher fee the MAC's charging than the Mountain West is charging North Dakota State. They're only charging North Dakota State $12.5 million to join their conference. So I guess if you look at it from that light, that's good for the MAC. I think it also makes you question, how desperate is the MAC right now for money? Is the situation a little more bleak than we thought, that they're going to, when they already have internally probably a conference schedule figured out and all these pods, and now Sacramento State would be joining next year as a football-only member? That's going to throw a wrench and stuff. You're going to have possibly Sacramento State and UMass facing each other.
Yeah.
The closest team in the MAC currently to Sacramento State is, I believe it's Western Michigan. It's 2,177 miles away. That just doesn't make any ounce of sense at all. But hey, $18 million speaks a lot.
I'm glad, Dan, that you mentioned the Big Ten, because to me it feels like on one side of the U.S. you have Rutgers and Maryland, and on the complete other side you have USC and UCLA.
Oregon,
Washington. It doesn't make any sense to me. Money is a big motivator for people. I get that, but I don't think it's a good move personally.
So that would put the MAC at 13 teams for football. You would love an even number. If there's one more school you'd like to see the MAC join, football only, cool, but let's just say every sport, just to have some fun with it. What team, what program would that be? What university?
There's a lot of really good ones.
Yeah, I really want to hear Foster's opinion.
There's
both. Have Foster go last. Give him some time to think about it.
you got to give me a second to think, because I'm thinking, obviously, basketball is going to be where my head goes first. Both North Dakota State, who just joined Mountain West, and North Dakota, good basketball schools. They'd be fun to have in the MAC. They're always going to be, one of the better schools there. I'm trying to think who I could add in that'd be a good match. Youngstown State would be fun. The Penguins would be a great ad. The jacket behind me is actually a Youngstown State basketball jacket. You can't see it, but it does have Youngstown State basketball on it. There's a little penguin on it, so that'd be always a fun one. Any Horizon League team, Oakland, get Coach Greg in the conference. Obviously he's an alumni here at Bowling Green. That'd be fun. Any of those Horizon League teams would be actually a good matchup.
It's got to be the Western Kentucky, right?
It does. Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee.
Bowling Green versus Bowling Green.
The Bowling Green matchup.
Oh, that would be cool.
That'd be good.
But
yeah, that's I could go with a lot of teams. Anybody from the Horizon League would be fun. I know, NIU from the Horizon League. Get them back? No. Because they're going to Horizon League for basketball. But
our whole conference has taken out their anger on Northern Illinois this year.
As they should. for leaving. But yeah, I think Youngstown State, Wright State, both within Ohio, both would be good ads, and those would be basketball schools because they don't have Division I football. I'm trying to think of any other like.
For me, I'm just looking at the map of all the Division I schools.
There's
and just
a
looking
good
at the
amount
ones around
in
us.
Ohio. I mean, that you could add that'd be really nice.
Would it be crazy to say University of Dayton?
I don't see them. So here's
from
the
the
thing.
A10?
Yeah, they're not going to take the step down. They're
I
too
don't
good.
think, I think
A10
they're
basketball.
getting more money from
They
the
are.
A10 than they would from the MAC.
They are. Even without a top level football program.
Yeah, I
True.
I thought about Dayton too, but I mean, you look at just you got BG, UT, Akron, Kent, Ohio. There's too many Ohio teams. So what I would do is I'm thinking more in the Pennsylvania region by going either Duquesne or Robert Morris.
Duquesne would be a lot of
as
fun.
joining
That's
the
another.
MAC.
That's another.
Duquesne's good
Both
there.
A10 teams, but Duquesne would be a lot of fun. A lot of good history with Duquesne. I mean, I've only heard good things about their basketball arena from Lucas, who's been there before. So
Yeah, that'd definitely be an interesting one. I think this also just opens up all the questions about realignment and the future of the MAC. I don't think bleak's the right word, but
not the greatest looking. Though.
questionable may be the right one. Of where does this put the MAC? What's the MAC's future? Is the MAC in trouble? I think there's a lot of stuff that we don't necessarily know. But Sacramento State, if I had to create a bingo card of teams that I would have adding the MAC, boy, they're low.
They're
on
not
that
on your.
list.
They're not top of your
No.
list.
Yeah.
They were like number 1 on my list to join.
They'd be low. I mean, it's the only team in the MAC west of the Mississippi. So
You know what?
By a
I'll
good
throw
15.
one more out there. It's another A10 school. St. Bonaventure.
Ooh.
Okay.
get Woj into the MAC.
Get Woj in the
Ooh.
MAC. They aren't that far away from Buffalo. They're right into the New York area. It wouldn't be that far out of our way. That'd be a fun one. And they're getting a lot of new recognition, especially in the basketball, with Woj being a part of that.
Here, I was thinking go West Virginia and do Marshall.
Bring them back.
Former-
Bring them
former
back.
Yeah, bring 'em
member.
back.
That'd be nice, yeah.
I'd like Marshall. Well, it'll be interesting to watch all of that. But that'll do it for today's show of the Zig Zone. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, if you missed part of the show, it'll be posted on bgfalconmedia.com. You can go back, listen to the show in full if you'd like. You can also just skip on the timestamps that we put there to listen to your favorite parts of the show. We'll be back here next Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. Holden Ruck should be back in this chair with a whole new cast of Falcon Media Sports Network personalities. So want to thank all of you for being on. Again, Jacob Kopaz, Dan Reinauer, Dawson Pelter, Foster Rostai. I'm Tyler Kablitz. Thank you for tuning in to the Zig Zone here on WBGU 88.1 FM. Until next week, we'll see you.
yeah, just starting out tonight, guys. Obviously, the rivalry aspect of the game, the emotions on display throughout the contest. You all on the winning side of this one here at home. For both of you, maybe what that might mean and kind of the emotions after the fact.
I mean, these games mean everything. You know, we always want to beat Toledo, and just having the fans come out there, you know, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, especially the way we lost last time we played them. We really needed this one bad.
One of the things that stood out to me tonight was the three-point shooting was especially efficient, shooting over 50% there as a team. Was there anything that you all saw on their end defensively that allowed for that success, or maybe what you all might have done on the offensive end?
I feel like coach always calls out the right plays. You know, guards on the court call out the right plays. Who's ever high, you know, they shoot up in shots. You know, we practice those in practice every day. So those are regular shots for us.
Yeah, we're a brotherhood. So I mean, we find the hot hand, and we're not selfish. So I mean, that's just how we play.
And then just checking one more thing. Yeah, one thing that has stood out to me is, you know, throughout the season, various pieces in the starting lineup. Sometimes, you know, some come off the bench, some start. It seemed tonight too the depth really showed up there with Aiden. 10 points overall. I can't remember what he had in the first half, but had a really strong stretch there. You know, Meyer Wall off the bench as well. Javon adding in 6. For you all to kind of know you have that consistency regardless of who's in the starting lineup, I'm curious what you all have made of that production.
I feel like it's great. Just having bench power. You know, when those guys' numbers are called, you know, they come in, they contribute.
Could you guys talk a little bit about that start you guys off to in the second half? I mean, when you guys scored all those points immediately, how big was that for the momentum heading forward in that second half for you guys?
Just you know, those type of swings, you know, that's what get us going. You know, on the defensive side, you know, rebound, push. I feel like that's how we got most of our shots in the beginning of the second half.
Yeah, coach is big on like just winning each round, each 4-minute round. So that's just what our objective was the whole game.
And Josiah, I feel you had a little bit of a slower start in the first half, but you really came up huge in that second half. What did you do different, and what changed in that second half for you to make it more successful for you?
In halftime, just my teammates just talking to me, telling me to keep being aggressive. My coach is telling me to keep being aggressive and giving me that confidence.
Teammates, Aiden Goins, I feel like he was a huge part in your guys' victory in that first half. He was like a huge momentum boost for you guys in a couple areas. Could you just talk a little bit about how important that was throughout the game?
Yeah, AG the ISO GOAT, you feel me? So, you know, he can do that every night.
Can you guys talk about the energy and the environment in the arena today for the rivalry game?
I feel like the fans being here give us a +5, you know, period. So that was great. It was electric tonight, and I feel like we have that every night. It'll be a great one.
Yes, sir.
And then in the last game against Toledo, you guys gave up a late lead. You didn't give up a lead. I think it was after 6 minutes left to go in the first half. How crucial was that for you guys' execution and being able to build that lead and keep building on it and not really let the Rockets ever get back into it?
Yeah. When they throw punches, we just answer. To be honest, that's what we did tonight. Trying to stay on the glass, just active on defense, and just keep them from out of the paint.
You guys did a great job tonight, getting to the free throw line, playing super physical on both ends of the floor. Was that the mentality heading in this game, to just be as physical as possible?
100%. It was come in and be the more physical team.
And then late in the game, you guys, that Toledo started with the full court press in those final minutes. You guys kept your composure, broke the press pretty much each and every time. Is that just a thing that happens in practice of breaking that press, or was that a game time thing?
We worked on that all week. So first game we had 16 turnovers. You know, cutting that down to 7. Taking care of the ball. That's just great. You know, practicing that every day in practice. I feel like that's how we came out on top.
Just getting back, speaking of this great rivalry, how much did the way the first game ended kind of have that motivation for you guys, and especially their student section was right on you, pretty vulgar the entire game last time. How much did that first game kind of get you guys going?
I feel like you know, it held down on us for a little bit. You know, we didn't really talk about it, but it was always in the back of our heads. You know, when Toledo come back up, you know, that's what we want, and this the game that we want. We always been thinking about it ever since.
Your best offense seemed to come when you were switched on to smaller guards. I'm curious how comfortable you were with that as the game went on.
We practice that, different type of situations. If they get switches, whoever's going or whoever the smaller guard is going, that's who we're throwing it to. And I believe 100% that we can score every time.
Yeah, I mean, coach made it like a big guard team. We're all big, so when we see small guards, we see it as food.
Yeah, we're really proud of their effort. We dialed in. Obviously the first game we felt like we had some self-inflicted wounds that kind of didn't close that one, and we wanted to finish was a big theme. And we said, this was a game we wanted to win by double digits and not leave any doubt. And the guys stepped up and handled their business. Most importantly on the defensive end, and then took care of the ball. Obviously that was a major emphasis, was getting those turnovers down and making solid plays. And they executed the game plan. We wanted some things there were some things that we felt like offensively we wanted to do, and guys did a good job, executing and staying focused, and we're happy with the result.
Questions for Coach Simon?
So they knew your zone was coming, and when they struggled shooting, they got to the paint more, but you guys stood firm. What was the mentality for you guys on that side of the ball and in the paint defensively?
Yeah, I mean, our web defense can do a lot of different things, so as teams adjust offensively, we kind of adjust. And to their credit, I mean, they shot and made 10 threes at a high clip, but our bigs did a great job patrolling the paint, forcing a lot of miss to get 6 block shots, but we altered a lot more, and that was a big emphasis for us as Troy's gotten more aggressive in the middle of that zone, going after balls. It's really changed our defense in the last 3 MAC games, and with Justin Thomas getting healthy, that for the first time really in maybe 6 weeks, you're starting to see, he's one of our elite defenders, and it changes us completely.
Devontae could score on anybody, but you guys put a special emphasis on getting him onto Leroy in particular. Was that something that developed over the course of the game, or something that you went into the game thinking you could have an advantage in?
Yeah, I mean, anytime. I mean, Javonte's a hard cover for anybody. Freshman is probably a hard cover, and he's a spectacular player. Don't get me wrong, but. Javonte's a hard cover really for anybody, but there were certain matchups that we felt like we could, pursue a little bit, and we do that in generally as part of our offense.
What was the catalyst for that 8-point run at the beginning of the second half?
Well, we felt like we had some self-inflicted wounds there to end the half, and we just kind of lost our mind there for a second with some quick shots and not having numbers in transition, and so we want to get back to it, get back to the script, and they followed the script to a T, and we executed plays and got the shots that we thought we would make, and then they made the shots. That's part of it. But they also got stops on the other end too. And when we can score the ball and see it go through the net, it allows us to get our defense set, and that's a huge key for us.
One thing I saw defensively is there was a lot of emphasis on putting Shackelford on Blyden and also Justin Thomas. I mean, how important was that defensively for you guys to force those matchups on him?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen Josiah Shackelford emerge as a much better defender. He's a young guy, he's a sophomore, and when you're young, you're trying to find consistency, and as he's fought to stay on the floor and do all those things, he's turned his athleticism into a pretty good defender, and obviously Justin Thomas can guard so many different players, and as he's found his health, that all of a sudden gives us before he got hurt, was probably arguably the best wing defender in the conference, and as he starts finding his way again, that's 6'7" and long and rangy and picks up point guards, and he's a real weapon on that side.
And also Aiden Goins, I feel like he kind of showed up really big for you guys in the first half. I mean, Josh Shepard just called him the ISO GOAT. I mean, how important was that? I mean, just to make sure he was making all the right shots at the right time. How important was that in the first half for you guys?
Yeah, AG's kind of a cheat code. He's so good on the block. We haven't really seen like how well he shoots it. Yeah, he shoots the cover off of it, and and he's done a spectacular job. He's lost over 50 pounds since June. I mean, he's working his tail off to get himself into a position to be a dominant player for stretches of a game. So we found ways that we like to use him. and teams are starting to double. Teams that don't double, he's a load. If you do double, he's a good passer, which leads to other offense for us. So it's a catch-22, but we're really glad to have him on our side.
First of all, over 4,000 fans in attendance today. Just can you describe the energy in the environment in the arena for the game? Last year, this game, the second game against Toledo, was really the game that gave you guys momentum for the rest of the season after the Trey Thomas injury. How much momentum do you think this win will give you guys throughout the rest of the conference play leading towards the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tricky season for us, where we've played so many of these games close, especially some of the bigger ones where we get there right at the end and we didn't get over the hump, and that wears on you a little bit, and handling disappointment and frustration, and you start, for a player, they get frustrated, or maybe there was a missed call at it in a game, and you wear that for another 2 days, so coming off a win, that changes the whole momentum. Like, hey, and especially the manner we went about, where you win with double figures and you stayed the course and answered all their punches and handled the press and didn't turn it over. It was a solid, clean basketball game.
Coach, you guys seriously limited Austin Parks. He just had 2 points in today's contest. Was that a point of emphasis for you guys throughout practice?
Yeah, without question. We thought in the first game we didn't do a very good job with him, and we needed to match physicality with physicality earlier. And then on all his catches, there needs to be 2 hands, 4 hands, 6 hands, all touching that basketball, and Troy and AG are good defenders, so they had to just step up and handle our business. So they did a good job.
Speaking of that physicality, you guys had that throughout the game on both the offense and the defensive side, getting to the free throw line, offensively and defensively, really limiting them in the paint. What went into that physical mentality for this game?
I mean, we're a pretty physical team in general, but our big theme was physicality with poise and blending it in with smart play. We want physicality with technique. There's time and place, not just 2 hands pushing a guy. We're going to beat him to a spot and be physical, not give them the spot and then react and get a foul. So we really worked on that, and we've become much better with that.
You guys were able to get plenty of second chance opportunities and second chance points of your own, but you also gave up quite a few second and third chances to Toledo that led to a few buckets for them, especially in that second half. Was that a struggle for you guys at all? Something you had to overcome, or?
Yeah, that's the frustrating point. First half we did a pretty good job on the glass. Second half job we did a putrid job on the glass. It was just not. And when you start playing smaller, some of those smaller lineups with Sam at the 5 and Wool at the 4, we got a little bit small, which requires a little bit more of a gang rebounding mentality. But our web defense, our matchup, forces so many perimeter shots that sometimes these balls spray all over the place, and so we really emphasize long rebounds, and I felt like they got a lot of long rebounds, and so we've got to continue to track those balls.
Todd, when we see you guys click in like Kansas State or a night like tonight, it's just it's something. I was just curious. You guys have had some pretty good teams, but does this feel in some ways like this team may have the highest ceiling of your 3? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, without question. Yeah, especially as we had a rough month post-Christmas. We had that Miami, Ohio game. We got a couple guys go down. JT gets rolled up on. Ruff had a stretch, and so we had a couple guys kind of going down. And as they've become healthier, you're starting to see us look more and more. We thought during the NIU game, I turned to our bench and said, this looks like December version of us. This looks like November. This looks like Kansas State again. And so we feel good that, like, hey, this is what our potential can be. This can be what we did at Ohio pre-Christmas. And it's amazing just how 1 or 2 things changes your chemistry. But you add a unsung hero like JT, was a ball mover and another handler. Let's get a breather here and there, and a lot of good things start to happen.
Just lastly, in the spirit of throwing a log on the rivalry fire, I was just curious, the way the last game ended and maybe even the post-game shenanigans, does that make this one even sweeter?
Yeah. I mean, I love college basketball. I love the rivalries. I love rowdy fans. You don't you don't love all the expletives and the, taunting 8-year-old girls and stuff like that in the stands like we have faced, up at Toledo. But it's part of it. It's part of it. It's what we sign up for, and it's part of the deal. This is a heated rivalry, and we talk about in the locker room. It's a legacy game, but we're gonna continue to win with class and handle ourselves a certain way, but within the confines of what a hated rivalry should be. So we push the envelope up to the line, but yeah, it's a little more. I don't know maybe the right word, but a more peaceful press conference without the F-bombs outside the doors, I'd say today.
Yeah, one thing that stood out to me over the course of the two games is you all were able to build up, 7 to 8 point leads in the first half of the game at Savage Arena, and then you do it again in the second half. And then both times they kind of bounce back and get back in it and then ultimately produce the win. And then here in the first half as well, you're right there at that same margin. They bounce back. You mentioned a little bit here the second half, though, of this game, being able to keep off that momentum, that late push from Toledo. When you looked at that on that end, was there anything in specific that stood out to that? And maybe as you get towards the stretch, was that something you all talked with, like, hey, we've been here before, how do we, prevent this?
Mm-hmm. No question. We spend more time on self-scout and self-repair and all those things than anything. And so when we have those moments where, we didn't connect at the end of the game, and there's some games like, Kent State, we did a lot of great things at the end of the game. One ball went through between our legs, but we executed and got open looks, and they didn't fall. That's a different type of deal. And then we miss a couple shots and have bad transition D up at Toledo. Those things you got to fix. And how do you stop these runs? Here's how we're going to stop these runs. Here's exactly what we're going to do. And I thought today we did a really good job when those runs started. We got to the script. We don't try to put the cape on or do anything outside of it. We just get to the script. Hey, this is what we're going to do. Let's get back to what we're attacking, what the game plan is, and calm the waters.
Then one thing that really stood out to me was only 7 turnovers tonight. I'm curious what you made of that, especially in some of these rivalry games where things can get physical, guys making plays on the ball. But to protect that with only 7 turnovers tonight, what you saw out of that?
Yeah, I mean it's such an emphasis for us when we take care of the ball and win the possession battle. We're really dangerous because in general, we hold teams to a pretty low percentage shooting in conference and when we don't turn the ball over and get enough possessions on offense and execute, usually that turns a bad possession into a better executed possession, and our shot percentage goes up, and it's really everything for us is those turnovers. So it's been a huge emphasis.
All right. Any more questions? One more?
Your 50th win as head coach of Bowling Green comes against Toledo. What does that kind of mean to you and just as a program?
Yeah, I don't step back and take a look at those milestones very often. I had no idea, but it's cool. You hope to get 500 more here. That's kind of my mindset. But we're proud of all of those. We're proud of all the players that have come through in the last 3 years that have been a part of that, and we're proud of what we've kind of started built, the foundation, and hopefully there's many more.
Great. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you. Have a safe evening.